I'm 25 years old and I've never ever moved outside of my parents' house. I've literally been living at home with my parents for 25 years. It gets to a point where it's like, I gotta get out of here, okay? And don't get me wrong, I love my mom, I love my parents, I love my family home, but your girl is grown now. So I decided that I was gonna move out. And here's how it went. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Me. And if you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much. Some of you guys may know about my Walk With Me series. It's a new series that I've been working on that is essentially capturing my life and adventures that I sort of take as I just navigate life. So that's travel, that's lifestyle, that's just a bunch of different things. Today's episode, we need to start off with how the hell do you even apartment shop in New York and what does that look like? Including tips. Because I'm not a pro and I don't know what this looks like, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Levy Gold of Urban Pads. He's the managing partner there, and they're helping your girl find an apartment. There's just a lot of apartments on the market right now, and I don't know where to start, how to start, who to look for, that type of thing. So this is why we're here. So I will be popping in and out of this video in the case that things become a bit wordy or it just seems like a lot of information. Don't worry, I'm gonna break it down for y'all because I learned a lot that day and I want you guys to too.
So here are a few things we'll be discussing in today's video because I want to make sure that y'all got the information, okay? Let's learn, shall we?
So if you're anything like me and you're really busy or you just know nothing about the market or you're overwhelmed with the amount of information that you find on Street Easy, you need a broker and you need one fast.
The brokers at the end of the day are middlemen.
Okay.
Right? We are making the deal happen between the landlord and the client. A lot of moving parts. So we are the face of the deal. In the end of the day, the brokers generally don't control the deal to an extent, meaning to say the landlord has the final say.
Okay.
So we will take the final brunt. We will take the full brunt if something doesn't happen, but we are generally the face. It's not our actual property.
Okay. Another good thing that I'm sort of liking about having a broker is that they're scheduling all my appointments for me. Natural lighting in an apartment, I'm looking for space, but at a decent price, okay? Because your girl's not trying to break the bank. This is our first apartment. Cut me some slack.
There's 4,000 or 5,000 apartments at any given time in Brooklyn on the market, I would say. Maybe possibly even more, and it can be very overwhelming.
I agree, because guys, listen, I've been to like apartments.com and Zillow and all those other things, and it's just a lot. For a place in New York, when should I start looking?
You could say 6 weeks in advance is a very good time to start. Some early birds like to start then 6 weeks or 2 months in advance. It's very important for the client to tell the agent their needs. So if a client comes to an agent and says, you know, I need to be in an apartment within a week, the agent will work a lot harder to make that happen instead of just like keeping an eye out. So they'll be a lot more focused and they'll be a lot more motivated to make sure that happens. You could have the entire process happen in 3 days. You can have a signed lease within 3 days from starting the process.
Wow.
You need to be very, very focused. Everything together, your paperwork, everything. But if you could do it in 3 weeks, 3 days, you could also, it could take a month.
So how much money do you need to save? Because I've heard a few theories on, you know, do you need to have a year's worth of rent? Do you need to have 6 months, 3 months? Like, what would you recommend?
So, I mean, generally speaking, the landlord is going to want the first month rent and security up front. So, you know, depending on how, you know, if you're getting a $2,000 apartment, you would want $4,000 for that.
So, and security deposit is usually the same amount of the first month's rent, right?
Correct.
So it's technically paying like for 2 months of the rent, but
right, that you're getting back.
Right.
The security deposit, I mean, unless you wreck the place, but most landlords are expecting people to standard wear and tear. You know, you need some money for moving, you need maybe some furniture. You should have, you don't need $10,000. Generally, first month in security, you should have lined up. Okay, so I wasn't really familiar with what a security deposit was at first. So basically, the security deposit is a security deposit. So it's gonna be the same amount of your first month's rent. And if you don't mess up the apartment, then you get that money back. But if you wreck it, then that's a different story. So I didn't know that. We're already looking at rent the first month. We're looking at the security deposit the first month. We're looking at furnishing your apartment. We're looking at the bills, whether you're paying for the heat or the water or electricity, whatever. This is a lot of money in a month. Depending on what your budget is, you could be spending anywhere between $4K
to $7K in the first month.
So then is it true that you really need you need to be making 3 times worth of rent?
The formula that's generally used in New York City is 40 times rent.
Okay.
So if it's a $2,000 apartment, you want to be making 80,000 gross pre-tax. There's some flexibility, like everything in life, you know, depending on the landlord.
Don't just try to move out and think in New York is expensive, depending on where you live and how you live. But save some money. I would definitely say like a tip for me is saving a good amount of money that will cover your bills, your moving expenses, and a few months of your lease.
What I want to know is, what are landlords like now given the pandemic? Because like, what would you say the market is like now? Do you feel as if it's a bit cheaper, more affordable?
The prices are dropped, so in that way they have more leverage. There's definitely more leverage in other areas like weaker files.
Okay.
I do feel that the landlords are gaining a little bit more security right now. Like they feel like we went over that bump.
There are definitely a bunch of apartments on the market that are several $100s less than what they were. And in general, this is also a good time for you to be negotiating. So don't get me wrong, this is not the flea market. You can't walk in and get a $3,000 apartment for $1,500. I'm not even gonna lie. It's a slower market and it's a cheaper one. So I would say for sure, if you're looking for an apartment, now is the time to look. But one thing that I will say is that there are so many people who think because of COVID that the landlords need them. And so they're gonna like approach with like trash credit, completely insufficient income, and say, hey, you need me more than I need you, and think that they're still gonna get the apartment. I assure you, these landlords are still telling people no.
Brought up gross net, like giving that.
I was gonna say, what is the difference between gross and net?
Also, some people get very nervous when they hear it. It's like gross net. What does that mean? Oh, I don't want that.
Yeah.
But gross net is basically just saying that you're 11 months of the year you're paying, let's say, $2,500, but 1 month you're not paying anything. And then that means to say, let's say the net will be $2,250, because if you average it out, because you got that 1 month free, you're only paying $2,250, or you got 2 months free, so you're only paying $2,000. Now, what some people get worried about is like, how am I going to afford that $2,500? Even if I get 1 month free, how am I going to afford $2,500 for 11 months? And that's where the negotiations come into play very strongly. The question that I always try to say is like, hey, could you give the first month free? Like if you give the first month free, then the person's saving that $2,500 initially, and they're able to use that money to throughout the year. So it's really no difference for the have. It's like, okay, fine, I'm getting the net price right now, but what about in year 2? What's going to happen in year 2? Yeah. And that's where it's an important conversation to be had. Like people are worried that in the year 2 they're just going to charge them the gross, but it doesn't generally happen, because at the end of the day there's market constraints. I can't just raise the price on
from
you
$2,000 to $4,000.
I could, but you're gonna leave.
Yeah.
And then what's the point? Am I gonna get someone at $4,000? I'm not getting someone off the street. So
because I've also heard too that your landlord may not if they won't increase it drastically, especially because if you're a good tenant, it's not worth having to find another good tenant when you already have.
Absolutely. If you're a good tenant, and a landlord will rather have a below market rental, generally speaking, the majority of time, than go out and find someone new. They're paying the broker generally, right, a month. They're generally paying they're generally losing a month from one tenant to the next. They generally have to do repairs. So you're talking about it could be a $5,000-$6,000 cost to do it, and then what are you getting for that? You're getting someone to pay you an extra $100 a month. That doesn't pay, right? Getting someone to pay $200 a month still doesn't pay.
Yeah.
So
it's still risky.
And it's still risky, and we don't know if that next tenant is going to be problematic.
Yeah.
Because number one thing, a landlord wants a tenant that's going to be good.
So, gross and net. What the hell is that? Okay, I 5 minutes ago, I had no idea what that was, but now I do. Your landlord, chances are they will not increase the rent price drastically, especially if you're a good tenant. So if you're good, you're paying your bills and on time, your rent on time and everything is good, they're not gonna boost it up to like $200 or whatever, because the chances of finding another good tenant is a risk. It's a gamble. So it's like they don't want to lose you. So instead they rather keep you for another year, especially if they know that you're a good, what do they call it? Tenant? Yeah, a good tenant.
I can tell you what we do. We compile information. We compile bank statements, pay stubs, W-2 tax returns, photo ID, the basics.
Yeah.
And we will make sure that's legitimate. That we will make sure.
So when it comes to moving, they want to do some background checks on you, okay? Not the actual background checks. I mean, I'm not sure if they do that or not, but background checks like your bank statements, your pay stubs, your credit score. And a lot of times with your bank statements, they sort of check for the past 3 months just to make sure that you didn't like win the lotto and all of a sudden you have $1 million in your account for like 2 days. You know, they need to make sure that on average you're making this amount, or on average you have this amount of rent. I mean, this amount of money to pay your rent. So if you stuck here this long, shout out to you. We have a lot more on the way. If there are any questions that I did not answer and you want to know more about, leave it in the comments. I will relay it right to Urban Pads, right to the brokers, because you know I don't know what I'm doing, but they do. And that's why I'm working with them, helping your girl find an apartment. Hopefully it's soon, because I'm tired of living at home. I'm tired of it. Okay, I'll see you guys in my next video. If you haven't subscribed, what the hell are you doing? It's free. Nobody has to die. Nobody has to get hurt. It's a simple red button. Click it so you know when the next video comes out. I'll see you guys next time.
Brooklyn. I mean, people don't realize, like, the air conditioner was invented, I believe, in Brooklyn.
Guys, Peace is showing me my first apartment today. You know, I've never been apartment shopping. So this is like, I was on the train like, oh my God, like, okay, are these gonna be my neighbors?
I'm already like, yeah, I do not want this apartment.
Your girl is modern and classy, and it's just not quite doing it for me.